Total Wine wouldn't let me buy wine after driving 60 miles because they needed to see the ID of someone I didn't even know. So, I placed a $10,000 wine order and never picked it up. There's a specific wine I use to pair with food. The closest Total Wine that had it was a 60-mile drive and it was storming out and I wanted it for the holidays because most likely was going to be cooped up inside. So I drove over. This used to be my typical Total Wine until I moved 2 counties away. Anyway, I went in and picked up the wine and got some other stuff for holiday parties. Was in there for maybe an hour and it came time to check out and the cashier asked me for my ID, so I gave it to her and then she told me she needs to see the ID of the other person I was with, so now I'm confused and say I'm alone? And she says, well, I have to go get my manager. So he came out to tell me that she told him I was with someone and they needed to come back and bring their ID or they wouldn't sell it to me. I told him I wasn't with anyone. He asks to see my ID, looks at it and says, well, unfortunately you look young. I find it extremely disrespectful to tell someone they look young while you're holding their ID in your hand, and not to mention I've been shopping at that exact location for about 4 years and have never had a problem. So I told him about how I drove there and have been shopping there for years and that I even have a second form of ID, and he was just kind of giggling and saying no. So I left very angry and it was late around 9 p.m. and then I had about an hour and a half drive back home in the rainstorm. So I was home pissed about it all night, and the next day I went into the one close to my house to get the other stuff I was getting. Unfortunately that one was out of wine, that's why I didn't originally go there. They were pleasant as usual, actually beyond nice, and didn't even hit me, which just goes to show the other location was on some kind of power trip or something. Then I got an email from them to review my experience, which they send every time I go there and I never do it, but I decided to select the location where I had the bad experience and give feedback on it. So I wrote exactly what happened, and then the next day I got a call from the store manager. Turns out the guy that night was an assistant manager or something. However, he was much more pleasant than the woman who called me. She was extremely rude and condescending and told me that she reviewed the cameras and that someone walked in with me at the same time and that made us a party. I told her I didn't know them. She said it didn't matter. So apparently people can't walk into Total Wine at the same time as you? Then she said that the employees were watching me and that the person left 30 minutes before I went to check out and they saw it. Also, if that is the case and that is your policy, why didn't you say something when you saw the person leave and we could have cleared up the whole situation right then and there? Instead of continuing to allow me to shop for another 30 minutes and waste my time to know that when I came to check out you were going to deny it? So I told her even if that is the case, someone can't leave a store. And she said no. To complete the transaction they would have to drive back with their ID. This made me extremely angry because even if that is the case and that is your policy, at least you can offer an apology for the inconvenience or something like that. Not just call me to argue and stir the pot. I was already kind of over it because it had been like 2 days, but just her whole attitude and nastiness about the whole thing was really an insult to injury. So I decided to look up their policy, and their policy clearly states that this only applies to parties at checkout, so the rule is who is with you at checkout, which makes sense or is at least more understandable. Another policy I read which was interesting was that any online order not picked up within a week they will issue a full refund to your original payment method. So my friends and I were sitting home drinking the stuff I had got at the other location later that day and telling them what happened, and they were all shocked. I used to work retail for a long time, specifically during the virus, and I know what an inconvenience it is to set up big curbside pickup orders because they take up a lot of space on the order shelf. So intoxicated and mad I decided to enforce their own policy on them and make a $10,000 order for the soonest possible pickup time, which they promised orders ready in 3 hours. So I made sure to order the cheapest, heaviest bottles I could think of so they could take up the most amount of space in their curbside area, and made sure to only order like 1 or 2 of each so they couldn't just give me a case, they had to get individual ones, and I ordered their whole supply of Tito's since it's popular and it's the holidays and I know people are going to be looking for it, and this Total Wine has its curbside order section in the front behind a counter where you can see it. And I know when customers saw it they would ask for it, and then they would have to explain how someone ordered all 238 bottles and they're back there on reserve. Then they'd probably get grouchy and ask for a manager. But the manager would be busy because I also made sure to order a lot of bottles behind glass so they would have to run around with their keys scrambling to get this order ready. I worked retail and I know how much stuff like this throws off a schedule and annoys the managers. So I loaded up the cart and stopped when I got bored and placed the order. I got the email confirmation which specified that you have to wait for the pickup confirmation email and that pickup times aren't guaranteed, so I thought for sure they were either going to cancel the order or call me or something. Something interesting that is sent with the email is a pickup policy that states specifically the recipient of the order needs to be 21 so you can have other people in your car not 21. Well, 5 hours later I got the pickup email. It took them longer but I was still surprised. Then later I got a pickup reminder email. Then 3 days later a second reminder. Then 7 days I got my final notice email. And then day 10 I got a phone call. It was the manager acting like a completely different person this time, asking when I was coming for the order. At this point, I think she knew I was effing with them because it had been 10 days and she knew my name from the previous feedback thing, because when she called she asked for me by name and my name was on the order. So I told her yeah, I went to pick it up and was told I looked too young, so I just went to the other Total Wine and picked it up, the same stuff there. So then she was mad and said, "Are you seriously not coming to pick this up?" I just said no. She hung up. When your higher up asked you why your store had to refund someone $10,000, explain to them what you did. They were supposed to automatically cancel the order at the 7-day mark, but didn't she call me at the 10 days? So I called their customer service line to cancel it and she told me some stores wait until the end of the month to do it. I'm assuming the manager was trying to hold out on refunding to end the year on a better number. Retail does that. I made them cancel it right then.